Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today we're going to be doing a Q&A as part of my Tea Time Chat series. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. Today I have a Q&A for you as part of my Tea Time Chat. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do for Tea Time Chat this time around, and I was like, oh, I could just make that the Q&A. So in case you missed it, last month was eyeshadow palette month on this channel, and because I saw so many new people coming in the past year or so, I was like, you know what, it's good to do a Q&A and like update people on who I am, and if you're newer here, that you know a little bit more about me. So as part of the giveaway, I asked people to leave me a question, and I went through the entire list, and sometimes I've roped some things together if things were really similar, but I have questions roughly in 5 different categories. I've got some questions about my personal life, about travel. There were quite a few questions about that, about teaching, because I am a teacher, actually. I'm not just a YouTuber. That was one of the questions, actually. I've got some YouTube questions, and then I've got 2 pages of makeup related questions. So I'm just gonna just fire these off, because I need to go and have lunch as well. But I wanted to make sure I answered them for you. So this is my Tea Time Chat for September, a Q&A. First question that I have for the list of personal questions, because that's where we're gonna start, is I love your positive personality, so how can you keep yourself so positive and gorgeous? Living my life, I'm a glass half full type of person, so I always have a generally positive outlook on life. I just feel that whatever happens, happens, and so be it, and I just try to live my life and be the best person I can possibly be, so I think that goes into it. But yeah, I tend to be a pretty positive person overall, and I think that's what you see on camera as well. Do you have any pets? No, I don't. I want to, but I am just away too much, so I don't really feel that I can give a pet the home it deserves, you could say, so that's why I don't have any pets. Someone asked me about my love life. I feel we don't get to see anything from you on that subject. Feel free to dismiss the question if it's too personal. I do not share my personal life online. I just don't. I never have. You can probably find bits and pieces here and there, but I tend to keep the people in my life out of this channel and out of what I do for online content creation. It is my choice to have this channel and be present online, but it isn't anybody else's in my life. So friends, family, whatever, you will never see me, you will hear me mention people, but I will never show people, and that's been a conscious choice of mine ever since I have been online. I just don't, so I will never share that. What is my dream? My dream is to, well, in a way, a lot of the dreams I used to have already come through, so do I then have any new dreams? Maybe, like, one of the dreams I have, but I think if I would just work hard and whatever, then in the future that may actually be possible as well, but I would like to have like a vacation home somewhere, like, I don't know, somewhere in Spain or something like that, or Italy, to just have somewhere to go to and just relax, and I don't know, that sort of thing. So that would be the biggest dream I still have for myself, but you know, it used to be a dream of mine to own a house and to be happy in my job and do all that, but those are all things I've achieved now, so they're no longer dreams. My biggest disappointment in 2025, is there anything that I'm really disappointed in this year? I think this tends to go with like the first question. I'm pretty positive, so I tend to forget disappointments really, really easily. But I think the biggest disappointment was realizing how much I was done dirty by doctors in the past 20 years of my life. There's actually another question about that in a second, but I did an entire get ready with me telling you about my life. I was finally diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome this year, and it ended up being the cause of a lot of pain and discomfort that I have been dealing with for the past 20 years of my life. So yeah, that was a disappointment to realize, like, okay, this is really something that if they had taken my complaint seriously, then this wouldn't have taken this long. My biggest struggle that I experienced in my mid-20s, that's very specific, but I was 24 when I had my first burnout. that was a struggle. So, but now I know it was caused by that thoracic outlet syndrome thing that nobody knew about yet. So, but that was the reason why I could no longer do what I was trying to do. So that was definitely a big struggle, taught me a lot about myself. And I think that that also like, again, with the positive outcome, like I always feel like things happen for a reason and you're there to learn and to grow. So even though those are like bad things that happened to me, I never really see it that way, because it's something that I'm like, yeah, it taught me a lot as well, and it made me a better person in a way. So yeah, it was a struggle, but I came out of it pretty well. What music do you enjoy the most? There's a lot, actually, but I feel like ever since like the whole pandemic situation, I've sort of fallen off of like the way I used to consume music was very consistent, but then because of the pandemic, concert stops, festivals stopped, and I just haven't really felt like I was in tune with music as much as I used to. But I tend to like a lot of indie bands. I like to like pretty underground things, and yeah. So I don't really, I can't really tell you a genre because I like almost everything. Like I like certain classical pieces, so I wouldn't say I don't like classical music, but that's not a go-to of mine. And when it comes to like the louder end of the spectrum, I'm not a huge fan of metal, but pretty much anything else in between, I have it and then I listen to it on the regular. I can go from smooth jazz to an electronic banger to a top 40 hit to an indie rock, shoegaze, R&B, rap, just a plain good old classic rock song. I like music from every single decade and almost every single genre, so there isn't a lot that I can really like say like, ooh, this is like my favorite. And I don't really listen to artists a lot anymore. Ever since I've been like using Spotify more, I just listen to playlists. So, but if I had to like share like a couple of artists I really like, something like London Grammar I think is pretty exemplary of things I listen to quite a bit. Yeah. Is there anything else? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but yeah, that's sort of the music I like best. What's the most meaningful lesson you've learned from your beauty journey, and how has it shaped you both professionally and personally? Nobody cares what you look like. Like, especially in the makeup space, I feel we're very focused on how things look, but people in your everyday life, they barely notice. If you feel like your makeup looks trash today, chances are that somebody will tell you, I love your makeup. And sometimes that's a day where I'm like, oh, I really struggled getting it to look at least half decent today. So I just find that the way you feel about things is very, and how you view yourself is very different from what other people see. So I think that's a lesson that I got from also posting things online and doing all that. No one cares. Only you do, really. Do you have a favorite memory from time spent with a best friend? There's too many to count, really. From travels that I've been on with friends, to concerts we've been to festivals we've been to just celebrating my birthday and cooking for everyone. Like, I have so many great times that I've spent with people that are dear to me, so I can't really pinpoint one specific time. How are things going with your thoracic outlet syndrome? That was a question as well. So I did a video in May updating you last, and it's now been 5 months since I had the injection. So I had a Botox injection in a neck muscle. In case you don't know what thoracic outlet syndrome is, it's where there isn't enough space in this area. In my case, it was on this side of my body, in this area of your body, and it clamps down on your nerves. So in my case, there wasn't enough space between my first rib and my clavicle. So that was like putting pressure on not just one nerve, but a bundle of nerves, and that caused heaps of problems. I'm still not 100% there, I can tell you that, but I'm still improving weekly. So that's been great. I've only had to go to see my physical therapist twice in the past 5 months, which is the past 3 years. I was at a physical therapist at least once every 2 weeks, almost like every single week of the year. And now in the past 5 months, I've been twice. And every single time I go, it's almost like I then like stay the same for like a week, and then there's a week where things are worse, and then I tend to pull out of it and things start to improve, which is really weird because I haven't had that sensation in the past 3 to 5 years. I was only I was only doing worse whenever I had any sort of treatment, or if I were to work out, like moving my body would make things worse. Because that would put pressure on the nerves. So that's why. But yeah, I'm still improving. Things are still doing fine. It is now my aim to try and work out 3 times a week until the end of the year, and then sort of like reassess how things are going. And if things are still going well and still improving, I want to add at least 1 or 2 more workouts to the regime, you could say. I used to work out 4 to 5 times a week before all of this started to really cause any problems for me. So that's sort of where I would like to go back to and sort of live my life that way, because I love dancing, I love working out, I love being an active person. I just wasn't able to. So I hope to be able to build things up. And I've exchanged Zumba classes for actual dance classes again. So it's really interesting to see how that's going to go, because that's one of the things that actually caused me to throw out my back last year. So, but I'm willing to try again and to see if things keep improving. Where does my passion for beauty come from? I put it with personal because it is a bit more of a personal question for me. I kind of just fell into it. It wasn't something that I've like been nourishing since I was a kid, even though like my grandma used to be really into beauty products, and she kind of like took me along for the ride, you could say. She was always the one like polishing my nails, and I would get like her old perfume and she would refill it with water, and then I would also have perfume and stuff like that. So my grandma was the beauty queen, you could say. And then as I was a teenager, I was not interested in beauty at all. That was my way to like be a teenager and push things away, you could say. And then when I was in my 20s and I started working, a colleague came into work and was like, "Are you wearing makeup?" She's like, "Yeah, because I wanted to feel more awake." And that's sort of why I started wearing makeup. And then I started to create online content, and that was very sort of going all over the place for at least 5 years until I settled down on like makeup and beauty content. So it's sort of been a very gradual, organic process. It's not as if I like woke up one day and I was like, "Ooh, I want to wear makeup." Didn't really work that way. Most memorable gift you've ever received? I'm gonna have to say, when I graduated for my master's degree, my parents gifted me a travel voucher and a suitcase. They know me very well. And the reason why I wanted to end this section, this personal section, with that question is because the next section is travel. So it's a nice segue into the travel questions I have. Someone asked, I know you have traveled a lot, which is your favorite area and why? My favorite place to travel to would be London. I can go there every year. It's a vast, vast city. By now I know quite a lot of the city pretty well. So there are a couple of like usual spots I just like to go to whenever I'm there. But it's just, there's so much to see. There's so much to do. You can go to a different like neighborhood that you haven't visited before, and you're going to find something to do there. So for me, it's just a never-ending influx of new ideas, of new places to go. And that's why I really enjoy going to London. I've been going to London almost every single year since 2009 at least, I think. And sometimes I go twice a year. So this year I'll be going twice. I went to London for a day in May, and I'll be going for a weekend in November. So that's already planned. What are some other big trips you want to make? And I think this was actually someone else's question as well. Travel plans for the next couple of years, having had the big Japan trip this year. But what would you like to explore further afield? So I think Australia has been on the list of like further away travel, but it's very challenging to do. Because again, it would require at least like 4 weeks to be able to do that. And when I have summer vacation, it's winter in Australia. So I think that's going to have to wait until a couple of years down the line, perhaps when I can take some sort of sabbatical or something, then that might work, but not anytime soon. But yeah, Australia is pretty high on the list. And now that I've been to Japan, I'm like, I'd like to do Korea as well, South Korea. And China is really appealing to me as well. So probably going further east as well. Someone asked me when I will be visiting the US again. Not anytime soon, given the current climate. That was actually my first like further away destination I wanted to travel to. I was like, oh, I'll first go to Japan, and then the year after I'm going to New York or Chicago or whatever, and I'm like, I'm not even gonna try. So unless some things change in the political climate in the US, I don't think I'll be going anytime soon. Why was I drawn to go to Japan? That's a question I had as well. A friend of mine went, my cousin lived there, and I had friends growing up in high school who were huge manga fans, so I was sort of familiar with the country, but I was influenced by my best friend who went a couple of years ago, and then she went again with her boyfriend, and I saw their pictures. I was like, I just need to go too. So that's sort of how it happened. People also wanted to know about like the Netherlands, because that's where I live. How is it that so many Dutch people know how to speak English so well? So I'm going to start with the last question here, because that's the easiest one. How is it that so many Dutch people know how to speak English? We have subtitles. There's no dubbing in this country. They made a decision really early on within Dutch media that they were going to subtitle everything. And that exposes you to English, and that exposure to English makes you attuned to English language really easily. Then there came the internet, so that made it also really easy to sort of, again, be exposed to content creators and just finding stuff online, because most of the internet till this day is still in English. So it's you're limiting yourself if you don't speak English very well, I feel, in this world nowadays. So there is that. There's this urgency to learn English. Also because Dutch is such a small language that nobody else speaks, so we feel we need to speak another language in order to make our way in the world, you could say. So there's definitely that as well, but media not being translated into Dutch left, right, and center is definitely the most helpful thing that we have. And we start to learn English quite early in school as well. There are schools that nowadays teach English as early as kindergarten. What can I say about Dutch makeup culture? That was a good question as well. I think I did a video about this a couple of years ago, actually. There's very few people who walk around looking like this. The 2-3 most sold products in the Netherlands when it comes to makeup is mascara, concealer, and foundation. Maybe a brow product. But colorful makeup, nobody wears it. In the Netherlands, the general consensus tends to be doe maar gewoon, dan doe je al gek genoeg. Which translates to be normal, that's crazy enough. So what you see, I know a lot of people know Nikki Tutorials because she's Dutch as well. There's very few people in the Netherlands who wear a full beat of makeup every single day. If you just walk down the street, you're going to see very little makeup, a pretty casual way of dressing, but not so casual in the States. People go like grocery shopping in their pajamas. It's not that casual, but it's like jeans and a t-shirt. And there's very few people who will try to like look different or do different things. It's all very everybody sort of looks pretty middle down the road. And I feel like a lot of Dutch makeup culture is actually influenced by the fact that we just ride our bicycles everywhere. So we walk, we cycle, of course we drive cars, but a lot of people in the Netherlands will go to work riding their bike. And it gets windy and rainy. So elaborate hairdos or a lot of makeup, it won't stay put. Because a good Dutch rainstorm, no setting spray is going to help you there. No amount of waterproof mascara is going to see you through. So I feel our climate has also influenced how people dress and what makeup and hair stuff they do. It's all pretty minimal, I feel. If you are visiting the Netherlands, where would I recommend you shop for makeup while there? Be prepared, depending on where you're from. If you're already from the European Union, you're probably not going to be so surprised. But I think if you're from other countries, you're going to be surprised at how expensive it is here. Makeup brands are expensive, especially if you go to Douglas and Ici Paris. Those are our two main sort of beauty stores that we have here. They are perfume stores first, and then skincare, and then makeup, I find. Because makeup usually only takes up like less floor space even than the skincare does. So that also tells you a little bit about it. And so it's sort of Douglas and Ici Paris are sort of like our version of a Sephora, but it's nothing like Sephora. There are a lot of brands that aren't available here, so be prepared to not be able to find everything. And another thing that happens a lot here is that even if the brand says they sell certain shades, you will not be able to find it in store. I find stock in stores is absolutely atrocious. So I tend to buy everything online for that reason. Douglas does sell a lot of different brands, but a lot of them aren't in store. They are online only, so there's that. And then if you want to get drugstore makeup, then check out Ethos and Kruidvat. Those are the two places that sell drugstore makeup. So that's where you will find your Maybelline and your L'Oreal and your Essence and your Catrice. And they, like, all those stores have slightly different deals with different brands. So Ethos has Elf, Douglas sells Elf. Ici Paris has Huda Beauty, and then Douglas has Pat McGrath. So it's a bit like that. So you're going to have to go to multiple places to find all of the brands. That's what I'm trying to say here. So I would check out those places. If you are in bigger cities, you're going to be able to find the bigger stores, and they usually have the better stock. If you do want to try some more luxuriously brands that are perhaps a little bit more difficult to find elsewhere in the country, you can also look into Bijenkorf. They're the big department store that is still available in some bigger cities. So go to a big city so that you can find a bigger Douglas, a bigger Ici Paris, and a bigger Bijenkorf. Then you have most of the standard brands. And then if you do want to find the best Kruidvat and Ethos, you're probably going to have to go outside of city centers, because the bigger stores are usually not in the city center for those shops. So that may be something to look into. And then this is another travel question. If there's any one country I could travel to for the rest of my life, which would it be? Possibly the United Kingdom. I do really enjoy the UK. I've been to several places in the UK, and I think they have everything that I want. So I think that's the country I could travel to for the rest of my life and not be bored. My favorite place to travel to, I already mentioned, London. Any tips for traveling to Japan, whether you're must-sees, and where would you buy some makeup or skincare while there? In Japan, I think that a lot of the must-sees that are already really well known are the things you're gonna want to see if you're a tourist. So any sort of travel guide will take you to, you know, the Arashiyama bamboo forest and the 1000 Tori Fushimi Inara Tashi in Kyoto, that sort of thing. Those are must-sees, but I do feel that, and I feel about this with any place I travel to, go to the places where fewer tourists go. It was like this in Japan, but it's like this in New York, it's like this in Florence, it's like this in London. Tourists tend to conglomerate in a couple of spaces in any place they go to, because they all like gather in one place. You go one or two streets to the right of where everybody is, and that's where you will find the best food places. That's where you will find much more things to do. So do the must-sees that everybody tells you to do, and then do the things off the beaten path. I think that's the best way. And I feel that everybody always wants to like experience things like a local. You're a tourist. It's going to be very difficult to experience things like a local because you're not local. Just accept it. Just accept that you're a tourist, that you're going to want to see the same thing as everybody else. And when it comes to Japan, for me, the must-sees were a lot of temples. That's what I really enjoy. I like culture and history when I travel. That's what, like, my main aim, you could say. But for instance, if you want to go shopping, I would say go to Osaka rather than Tokyo. That would be my recommendation. Makeup and skincare, I felt that Loft was the best place. I also went to Cosme, which had slightly different brands as well. But if you can find yourself an Aeon Mall, they very often have a supermarket, and then right next to it is a beauty section. That was amazing too. And then there were like the Same, which is like their drugstore, but they didn't have a lot of makeup. They did have a lot of skincare, but I felt Loft was the most sort of like Sephora-like shopping experience, and they had more expensive brands, they had cheaper brands, and they had makeup on one side, and they had skincare on the other side of the floor, and it was amazing. I felt the best shopping for makeup there. And they have a really big, I think it's 5 or 6 floors, and each floor has like a different theme. Loft in Shibuya, that's where I went, and it was fine. It was like a one-stop shop. I got everything in one go. My favorite activities to do when traveling and going on vacation, I like to walk as much as I can, because when you walk, you see the most, and I like to visit mostly historical places or like museums and things like that, like sites and things like that. That's usually what I tend to do. And then the final question here is, what is one of your favorite places you've traveled, and are there any places that you find especially inspiring for makeup looks and street style? I've loved every single place I've traveled to, really, but like I said, London is a firm favorite. I tend to go back to Paris at least once a year. Love going there, and I think I would love to go back to Japan. But I've been to the US plenty of times as well. I loved Chicago. I think Chicago is really, really fun too. That's one of my favorite places I've been to in the US. Are there any places that you find especially inspiring for makeup looks and street style? Not really. Not really. I don't really look at other people to see what makeup they're doing. I used to a lot more. Like a decade ago, I was much more into like emulating what other people were doing, but I found what works for me, and I tend to stick with that, I feel. And when it comes to like style, I just sort of take inspiration from my own wardrobe by now, because again, also wardrobe wise, I feel like I'm pretty solid. I will buy things here and there depending on what's trending and what I can get, but I know what colors suit me. I know what styles suit me. So that's sort of what I do. So I don't really look to other people for style and makeup inspiration all that much anymore. The third topic that people have questions about is teaching. So in case you didn't know yet, this is not my full-time gig. I teach, and I have been a teacher ever since I graduated. So that's coming to, I think, 2 decades now. Yeah, that's true. January will be my 20th teaching anniversary. Oh no. I feel old with just saying that. But yeah, I've been a teacher ever since I have been creating online content, and it's just something I really enjoy. I work a 4-time job. I do work part-time though. I did work full-time really briefly for a couple of years, but as the channel grew, I took 1 day off to have a bit more time to focus on this, but it's still not a lot. So yeah, that's the first question as well. Do you do YouTube as a full-time thing? No, not at all. And I therefore teach. So I do have a part-time job as a teacher. I work 4 days a week. Someone is also asking what I then teach. Whether I teach elementary school or high school. I work in higher education, so none of those. I actually work with students who are 17 and up. Most of them are between 19 and like 23, I'd say. That's sort of like where things average out, but they could be as young as 17, and they are very, like, some of our older students are like mid-20s very often, but sometimes there are people who are older who also enroll. I mean, I work in higher education. In theory, anyone who wants to get another education can come to us and do a course if they want. So what do I teach? I have taught English in the past, so that's how I started off my career. I studied English at university, and then I got a teaching degree to teach English. So that was my main bread and butter until a couple of years ago when I switched to the job where I teach now, and I've been teaching for a communications degree ever since. Did I always want to be a teacher? And the answer to that is yes. I had two options growing up. I was either going to be a teacher or I was going to be a journalist. Those were the two things that were in my head as early as 13 or 14 years old. And then when I started doing my studies and stuff, I chose my university because they had both teaching degrees as well as journalism degrees. And I tried my hand at both while I was a student, and then teaching I just sort of felt at ease straight away. Journalism wasn't my thing, and teaching just felt right. What do I like best about teaching? Helping others. The moment where you see that light bulb going off in someone's brain is the most rewarding thing ever. Where do you find the energy to teach as well as post onto YouTube videos and be so creative and consistent? How do you fit filming into your schedule? I film on my weekends, on my days off. That's when I sit down to film. So if I ever fall ill or anything like that, there's no content because I won't have time. And I edit at night after I come home from working out or whatever. I tend to sit down, grab my laptop, watch something on TV, and edit videos. That's how I do it. So it takes me about 20 hours a week, give or take. Some weeks it's a bit more, other weeks it's a little bit less, but that's how much time probably goes into maintaining everything. So yeah, how do I find the energy? Just good time management, I guess. I think, and of course, not working full-time helps too. Do my students ever ask me for makeup recommendations? Not necessarily. I do have colleagues who ask me, and I have given like a product I decluttered to a student in the past because she mentioned she wanted to try it. I was like, oh, I'm getting rid of it. Do you want it? Can I have it? Yeah, sure. And so I gave it to her. So they know about it for sure. I think that's another question coming up actually. So, but yeah, they don't really ask me for makeup recommendations all that much. Very often their makeup style is different from what I like to do. If you had to choose between your job and being involved with makeup, not necessarily YouTube, but just pure makeup, which would you choose? Teaching is, after all, both exhausting and time-consuming. I would choose teaching in a heartbeat. No questions asked. I need people around me, and to work in makeup, I feel it's a very, most of it is going to be on freelance basis. You won't have lots of colleagues. One of the best things about teaching is that you get to see so many different people in a day. So that's why I would choose teaching over makeup in a heartbeat. Have I always taught in the Netherlands? Yes, especially when I first started out. I was looking into opportunities to see if I could teach abroad, but I picked the wrong subject. And I'm from the wrong country to teach anywhere else. So very often teaching in other countries requires you to have a passport from either the UK or the US or another English-speaking country that's deemed a native speaker country if you want to be an English teacher abroad. And so I'm not, even though my English is pretty okay, I would say. But that was something they never accepted, so I never made it through any selection processes, even though I did try. My favorite subject to teach, so once I started teaching for the communications degree, I sometimes still teach English courses that we have from time to time, but that's not my main focus. Actually, I used my experience here online to get this job, and I am also able to use the things I learned through having these channels as part of my degree. Actually, quite a few of the students that I teach either already have TikTok channels or YouTube channels themselves or Instagram channels themselves that are pretty successful too, or it's something that they want to do. So there's definitely that goes into it. But my favorite thing to teach is research subjects. That's my favorite thing to teach. And the question here says, the class you always look forward to because you could talk about it for hours. Coming from a teacher, if you like talking about it for hours, that means you're probably not that good of a teacher. Teaching is all about letting other people do, enabling other people to be able to become better at the thing you're trying to teach them. So I'm of the opinion that I should talk less, if that makes sense. So I don't look forward to that research skills class because I get to talk a lot. but because I get to teach them something meaningful that they may find really difficult at first, but where I can really make them feel that those small successes of like, oh, I've actually done this. I've created a research report. Wow. You know, that's what that's why I enjoy teaching that class, not because I feel I'm good at it, because that doesn't make you necessarily a really good teacher. You can be really good at your subject and you can tell lots about it, but that doesn't mean you're good at teaching others about that subject, if that makes sense. Have your students ever stumbled across your YouTube channel or blog? If so, how have they reacted to you? Yes, they have. Very often, oh, you look familiar. Sometimes I get that, especially if they're already consuming quite a bit of makeup content. I may just pop up on their recommended page, actually, but very often I will just tell them straight away the first time I teach the class, know that I'm out there. Also to give myself a bit of credibility, like I know what I'm talking about. I do this and it's making me money and it's something that's part of my life. So yeah, they stumble across it or I tell them about it. But what was actually really fun, my brother has 2 kids and my niece is 8 years old, and she actually found me on YouTube. She was like, but that's my auntie. And she was actually looking at it with her brother, like they were looking at it together. And so they were like, they found your YouTube channel. My sister-in-law actually contacted me because that was really funny. So yeah, I do pop up in people's recommendations lists of who actually know me. Then there's questions about YouTube. What age were you when you fell in love with makeup? And who in your life shares your love of makeup? Well, I was in my early 20s. I was like 23, 24 when I really got into it. So a little bit late, but that was because I had no interest in makeup before that. And nobody else shares my love for makeup in real life. So that's why I started talking about it online, actually. So that's why this entire space exists, because there's nobody else who likes makeup as much as I do. So yeah, that's also the answer to the next question, what made you start your YouTube channel? That I already had a blog, and that grew very organically into focusing more on makeup and beauty. And then one day, someone who we were sort of friends, but it was like, you know, you have friends who sort of like come in and out of your life. She was one of those people. And she was like, oh, but I think, you know, those blog posts could make for really good videos. And it was her suggestion. So I just tried it. That was a decade ago. I just popped a couple of videos up, and then I started making more and more videos. Again, grew very organically, slowly over time. So how did I become a YouTuber? By doing it? Really? This is an interesting question as well. How YouTube has changed since I've started my channel. YouTubers seem to complain that views have dropped and people aren't into makeup anymore. That's not true. This channel is still growing. Not if you look at the view count per video, but this channel, there's still growth. There are still people watching. I think if you're used to a certain amount of views, and you're used to getting a certain amount of money in from YouTube views every single month, that's where you're really noticing the change. I'm a very small fish in the sea when it comes to beauty content. And I've never had the ambition to make it grow exponentially and to like make this a permanent thing for myself. So for me, the impact is less because it's not such a big part of my life. But in terms of like growing this channel, I do make more and more money with it every single year, ever since I've started making money with it. It's not enough to make a living, you could say. It's also too unpredictable to really have it as a main source of income, I find. So it's not something that I'm looking into. But YouTube has changed. TikTok has come up. Instagram became more important. And you then have certain choices you need to make as a content creator. Do you go where the trends are? And that's what algorithm wants. They want you to go where the viewers are. So unless you pivot and go where those viewers are, you will always see a drop if things aren't in your favor. And I think what started happening, especially like around 2016, the beauty community on YouTube was booming, left, right, and center. Then there were all the controversies and all the like things that started to happen. And so a lot of people got on this beauty train, not because they were interested in beauty to begin with. So I feel like it's not that there is less interest in beauty. I feel that the people who were watching beauty YouTube in its heyday weren't the core consumers of beauty content. They were there for the drama. They were there because these people were huge creators. And because there were so many huge creators that got people watching, smaller creators were benefiting from the slipstream. The slipstream isn't there anymore. I think if you're now starting a beauty channel on YouTube, unless you already have a following on Instagram or TikTok, it's going to be very difficult for you to break into it, you could say, unless you do everything right straight away, whatever. But even if you do things right straight away, I think you can still struggle getting the views. So yes, it has changed, but I don't think it's because there aren't enough people into makeup. It's because makeup content has moved elsewhere. I feel beauty TikTok is much bigger and booming than YouTube is. I watch a lot more beauty content on TikTok nowadays than I do on YouTube. I just think that beauty creators or people who consume beauty content went to other places. And the people who were watching to begin with weren't all there for the makeup. And I definitely think, like, I'm happy where this is going. I'm happy where I'm at. I don't need it to be any bigger. So that's why for me, it's like, whatever. I'm just here for the vibes, really. And like, I've never had an aim of like where this channel needs to go, or every subscriber helps, every view helps, every dollar I can make with this channel helps to keep this channel running. So I don't really feel like it's really affecting me all that much. But I can see if you have a bigger channel and you're used to getting certain views and all of a sudden it starts to drop. But that's the nature of the game. I feel like with any niche in content creation, there's always this boom. People are just going to this one thing, and then those people will go away again. But the people who were there for the main content are gonna stay. And my own content is a very good example of this. Whenever I do bigger videos that get a lot of views in, like the Essence and Catrice reviews that I tend to do, those are getting fewer views than they did at first. But I also feel there are some kids being very loud outside, so I hope you can't hear that. But the longer I'm around, like, I just feel pretty solid in the style of content I have, and I just like it, and whatever. I would watch this. That's sort of my benchmark. But that's not maybe necessarily what everybody else likes. And I feel there's also other content creators who have come up more recently who are doing things similar to mine, and then they could perhaps, be quicker with the video than I can possibly do it. So then they get those views a little bit more quickly because they're first. And I very quickly realized that if you try to like hop on every trend, do everything the algorithm wants you to do, you're going to burn out doing this really quickly, because you don't use your own brain and your own standards and your own, like, what's possible. People, there were some questions, how do you do this? How do you combine a job with YouTube? Because I'm very well aware of, I have this much time, this is what I can do with that time. But sure, could I make my videos prettier? Could I do things differently? I possibly could, but it would take more time, which is time I don't have. So I'm satisfied with whatever it is that I'm getting. And that's always been my aim. But I definitely feel that that's sort of one of the dangers of content creation and being a content creator, is that the people will always want more. People will always want more. And if you, in order to maintain a certain level of subscribers and views, are always pushing to do the next thing, people are going to expect you to do the next thing. So then once you start burning out and you can no longer do it, there's going to be a huge dip as well. So people are also bringing it onto themselves with how they react to the way these platforms are being organized. And I'm trying to be very stoically and go like, nope, thank you. So I know what I can do. I know what my time is worth. I know how much effort it can take to do certain things. So that's why not every single one of my videos will have swatches. I'm very sorry. I would love to. But the amount of time and effort it takes to maintain a database that's actively updated every single time I have new palettes coming in, when I declutter palettes to delete them and that whole thing behind the scenes, as well as making sure I can have time to edit the videos in order to make sure those swatches are in the video. All of that takes extra time that I don't have. So I have other ways of doing it. I will refer you to my reviews. That's where you will find the swatches. And that way, if you are truly, truly interested in a palette, you can still find all the information you want. That's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. So this question actually sort of goes with the latter part of the previous question of like people no longer being interested in makeup. There's a huge amount of interest in makeup. The beauty industry is currently growing exponentially year by year in terms of sales. That's why we're getting so many new releases, because every single brand out there is trying to make a buck. So there's a huge amount of interest in makeup. But if you're really in this beauty sphere the way we are, you're going to be overwhelmed, because it's just like, oh, not another blush release. You've heard me say this so many times. But I think there's a difference between, brands tapping into different demographics, brands tapping into other things. I don't necessarily think that the expense of makeup or the fact that people aren't interested is factoring into the sort of burnout that we feel who have been in this beauty space for some time. I think, especially now that the economy in a lot of places it is a bit like wishy-washy, and things are being very expensive. Here in the Netherlands, inflation is still going through the roof. It's now been doing that for a couple of years. Things have gotten really expensive here. The expense isn't the issue. People will buy less, but I think if there's less money around, people also want to treat themselves a little bit more. Will they be buying a €150 eyeshadow palette? No. Will they be buying that luxury lipstick because they have a party come the holiday season? They will. They will budget for that and they will do it. So I'm actually thinking that we're going to get more like lipstick and nail polish and those kind of things. That's actually it's not just a theory. It's actually been proven that lipstick and nail polish starts to sell better when there's an economic downturn, because it's one of the things that's that quick perk me up that you can actually afford. So I'm actually predicting that that's going to make a comeback if things keep going downhill, you could say. So yeah, it's expensive, but I don't think that that's part of the deal at all. It's just makeup enthusiasts have gone elsewhere. They like other things, and the people who've been here for a while either stick around or they move on from other things. It's a cycle. It always is. What are my favorite YouTube channels these days? Do I follow any other makeup related channels, or do you have any inspirations that way? Yes, but I watch very little YouTube myself nowadays because I don't want to be influenced by other people's opinions about products that I'm testing out. So I will hardly ever watch reviews. Hardly ever. The only things I'm very consistent in watching are the Kelly Gooch overview videos that she does. So she does these like deep dives into brands, or like she's now doing these overviews of like different eras on YouTube. Those I enjoy watching. They're more like essay style, you could say. I like watching Angelica Newquist from time to time, but again, more so for her chatty, sort of insightful beauty behind the scenes kind of videos rather than the actual reviews. I watch Betty Bean because she does consistent rankings of the last 10 or 15 eyeshadow palettes that she's tried. So those I do tend to watch from time to time just to see what she liked. Is there anyone else? And then No Poorer Beauty, I've been following for a few months now. That's someone I've added to the rotation this year. So I like her as well, but again, it's a lot of reviews, so I don't tend to watch those. And then, is there anyone else who still stands out? Like I mentioned, I'm more so over on TikTok, so I watch Honest Phoebe quite a bit on there. She's critiquing a lot of like makeup influencers and stuff. I find her very funny. Bronte Marie, she does a lot of like K-beauty and like Asian beauty inspired looks. So I like her. I like Melissa Murdoch quite a bit as well. She's a makeup artist who does the makeup for Selena Gomez. So a lot of the rare beauty campaigns and stuff she does. So I actually watch quite a few like MUAs and like tips and tricks and stuff. Robert Welsh is someone who I really enjoy too. He's like a bigger creator here on YouTube as well. But yeah, those are sort of like the main people I follow. Have you ever had a total makeup fail right before going out or filming? Oh yeah, I have them all the time. I don't really care. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not too fussed about making mistakes. You make mistakes, and then you live your life and you move on. It's not a big deal if my makeup isn't perfect every single day. What are your goals for your beauty channel? Like I said, I have no goals. If you told me a couple years ago that I would be sitting at over 12,000 subscribers in 2025, I would probably have told you were crazy. So, no goals, no real achievements here. Would I love this channel to be bigger? Yes, but I also know I would have to like convert my content into a direction and a style that A, I don't have the time for, B, I don't have the money for, and 3, I really don't think I would like to watch that. So I'm just here, and every subscriber I gain is a win for me. A win for me. Do I struggle with haters on your channel? No, not at all. Not at all. Everybody's pretty kind in the comments. There's sometimes something weird going on, but not even to the point where I need to block people or anything. It's all pretty okay. I think that most of the people who follow me and who leave comments are actually really nice people, and overall the vibe is really positive. So, if I was ever asked for a collab with a brand of my choosing, what brand would I collab with, and what products would I like to create? I actually don't know. Do you know that? There is not a single beauty brand out there that I feel so passionate about anymore that I say that's how I would like to collab with. And the biggest reason for that is like a lot of people are like, this brand is doing this and this brand is doing that, you need to cancel them, whatever. I barely cancel brands because I feel every brand has something going on behind the scenes that maybe we do not know about yet, but that could potentially be problematic, either nowadays or further down the line. We just don't know about it yet. So aligning myself with a brand completely, I feel a little hesitant there. So there isn't anything that stands out, but brands that I currently really enjoy are brands like Glaminatrix, Bella Beauty Bar, Fantasy Cosmetica. Like, those are some of my favorites. Essence and Catrice would be fun. I do a lot of content with them, Kiko Milano, but they never really do collabs with anything that isn't an IP, so I don't think I would do that. If I were to create anything, it would probably be a palette, because that's my main thing. And part 2 of the question is, if you would choose a palette, which I would suspect, could you show us what it would look like? I've actually done several videos in the past where I've created mock-ups of palettes that I would like to create. They all fit a very, very same vibe and similar bill, so I'll make sure to look some of those up and pop them in the description box so you can have a look, because I've done that in the past. And the final question for this section is, how do I come up with new content ideas? I have my content planning. I have a little booklet where I keep track of things. Whenever I have ideas, I jot them down in here, and I have lists in here that I can just pick ideas from. I have a couple of regular series that I do every single month, which accounts for half, maybe 2/3 of the content that I do every single month, so that makes it a lot easier, because all I have to think of is a theme. Like, this tea time chat video that I like to do once a month is a theme, a series that I like to do. And that just makes it so much easier. I don't have to think of what I'm going to be doing next all that often. I just pick and choose from a little list, like, oh yeah, now's the right time to be talking about highlighters, or, oh, I haven't spoken about concealer in a while, and that's sort of how it goes. So, and whenever I have new ideas, I just write them down, and then maybe next year I'll pick it up, or maybe I'll see another creator doing something, like with the Spicy Neutrals video I did as part of Eyeshadow Palette Month, that I saw No4 Beauty doing. So sometimes I copy paste ideas from other people, but very often I just have a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of content that just works on this channel really well. So if it ain't broke, I'm not gonna fix it. So things that you guys seem to enjoy and that I can see, like, there's a lot of either likes on that, or there's a lot of comments that it's generating, or it generates typically quite a bit of views, that's another way for me to know, oh, okay, this is something I need to do more often. So that's another way to know sort of what you can do with your channel. And then I still have 2 pages of makeup related questions. So I want to go through these quickly because I haven't had lunch yet and it's already 1:30. So I need to go and get some food. If you could only buy from 5 brands, what brands would they be? What brands could they be? Let me see. I think MAC would be one of them because they just have so many solid, like, good standard favorites. Same for Dior. I love a lot of their complexion products, things like foundations and stuff. I would have to put Lisa Eldridge in there just because I have so many of her lipsticks, and I would go for Lisa Eldridge for lipsticks, I think. And then I would probably put in Catrice rather than Essence, because I tend to prefer Catrice products over Essence, and Catrice does a lot of really good things around across the line. And then I think the 5th brand for now, but this could change, but I think I would go either Bella Beauté Bar or Glaminatrix for eyeshadow palettes, just so we can have fun with that, because those are now some of my favorites, or possibly Gloss Gods. I like them as well. I can't really pick, but like an indie brand for fun palettes. That's what I would pick. Worst palette you've ever tried? The first thing that comes to mind is a Primark palette. That was so dusty, it had no payoff. So that's definitely one of the worst. What color stories do I like to work with in the summertime? That's when I tend to reach for warm tones in the summertime. So warm tones. Best setting spray for a hot day. There's only one setting spray I swear by, and that's the ColourPop Pretty Fresh setting spray. It's the only one I use. Winter, summer, doesn't matter. My biggest makeup fail, and what did I learn from it? There haven't been that many fails. Like I already mentioned, I'm a pretty positive person, and I feel like mistakes you make are opportunities to learn. So I don't really see it as a fail, whatever, but you know, I wore the wrong foundation shade for a very long time, and I still struggle finding ones that work for me. And I don't feel that that's my fail. I feel that's on the brands for not making inclusive shade ranges. So yeah, so I definitely have stopped trying a lot of drugstore foundations because of that, because the shades are just not light enough very often. So what did I learn from it? Buy foundations from brands that actually stock your shade. But I'm like, it's easy to say because now we have those shade ranges, but like a decade ago when I first started creating content, those shades were nowhere to be found. So is that then a mistake? I don't think so. I was using what I could get. What are products that have been dethroned but that you loved at some point, and why were they dethroned? Oh, so many. Urban Decay Naked 2 and 3, anyone? They just got old. There were newer formulas, different things that were happening. So yeah, still good palettes. I still rate them very highly in my life, but they're no longer, like I had a top 3 favorite neutral eyeshadow palettes for years, and it was Naked 2, Naked 3, Lorac Pro 3. Still lovely palettes in my book, but it's now 2025. Those palettes were all released before 2015. In 10 years plus time, makeup has come a long way. Formulas change, things move along, and so did I. So that's why they were dethroned. But I still like them. They're still good things, and in my brain, they would still fit a bill, but it's not something that would sell anymore because they mainly have satins in them, which is not anything that anyone wants to wear nowadays. My favorite brand for eyeshadow. I have several. I would say Viseart, Natasha Denona, Sydney Grace. Those are my top 3 from like the top of my head. People also want to know whether I do other people's makeup. Yes, I do. I've done people's makeup for their wedding days, and I've just been asked by another friend of mine to do her makeup for her wedding day come next year, so that's there as well. So I've definitely done that, but no, people don't ask me to do their makeup all the time. They do ask me for makeup tips, like, hey, I have bags under my eyes, what can I do about it? That sort of thing. If I could keep only 5 eyeshadow palettes, which would I keep? I made a very bold claim in my eyeshadow palette collection video, actually, where I said if I could keep only 1 palette, it would be the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. So not even 5. I can narrow it down to 1. How has my makeup style changed over the years? I've done a pretty similar thing. I've definitely stepped out of my like comfort zone several times. Like a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, I need to be better at doing colorful makeup. So I really focused on doing that. There was a time when everybody was doing cut creases and halo eyes left, right, and center that I was like, okay, I want to master these techniques. I want to be able to do like a wing on myself. I've tried it all, people. It's just that I only have 3 minutes when I get ready to go out the door to do like an eye look. So that's why a lot of my eye looks and reviews look so boring, because I only have so much time to create the look. I do my makeup in 15 to 20 minutes every single day before I head out the door to work. So my makeup style has changed because I was like, okay, I need to be like, it needs to be manageable for me. I'm not the type of creator who like sits down for 2 hours to create a makeup look. That's not me. That's not what you're seeing on this channel. So just practicality. I do my makeup for me, for my day-to-day life. And I'm not doing makeup for like a fantasy self, you could say. And that has definitely impacted it. Can I do all these really crazy creative looks? Can I do very colorful things? Yes. But I feel like those are like my fantasy self. That's not who I am in my day-to-day life. So I'm not going to do it all that often. But I like to have a play every now and again. And then I still bust out those moves, you could say. What palette will I never get rid of? My absolute favorite eyeshadow palette ever. Urban Decay Naked 2. There's only 2 palettes I've ever bought a backup for, and that's Urban Decay Naked 2 and Naked 3. And the Naked 2 would be my favorite of the 2, just so you know. What are my favorite finishes and textures for shimmer in eyeshadow palettes? Do you like a combo, or do you just like one type? If I design my own palette, what kind of shimmers would you include? I like metallics. Those are my favorites. I do think that like metallics with a little bit of sparkle like I'm wearing today, that's my favorite thing for sure. I don't really like one type, but I do like to sort of set things up with a matte and then just use a shimmer all over the lid and have something a little bit shimmery in the inner corner. That's like my favorite thing to do. So yeah, if I were to create my own palette, I would include mainly metallics because that's my favorite thing. Yeah. I don't really think that, especially if you start combining multiple shimmers on the lid, that you can really see all the different textures, because one of them is always going to be overpowering the rest. So you only need like one good shimmer, I feel, to create a look. So I would give you like one type mainly. I don't like flakies at all. They crease on me all the time. Pressed glitters, absolutely not. Satins can be nice, but I find them a little flat with the way my eye shape is, so I want something more sparkly and intense. So like I would say a metallic and maybe like a foil. That sort of like that's my sweet spot when it comes to level of shimmer. And then of course I would include something that has like a shift. Not necessarily multi-chromes, because I feel that multi-chromes look mainly pretty in swatches. It's very difficult to get them to look the way they swatch on your lids because your eye socket gets in the way and stuff. So that's why I don't think multi-chromes have all that much value in a palette, but a good duochrome I like. Okay, so my camera battery is actually dying, so I may have to come back later to film the rest of this video. But the next question is, what is your favorite lipstick of all time? I'm actually wearing one of them on my lips today. This is my Lisa Eldridge Velvet Muse lipstick. It's down to its little nub, and if it hadn't broken on me, then the Lisa Eldridge Velvet Ribbon, which is my favorite red, would look the same. But it broke off, so I had to already repurchase that one. But yeah, that one went down really fast too. My all-time favorite skincare product, something you cannot live without. La Roche-Posay Cicaplast B5 Moisturizer. Oh, and the La Roche-Posay SPFs. The, what are they called? They come in the squeezy tubes. Those I like, with the green stripe or the blue stripe. The green stripe is mattifying. I like that one in the summer. And the blue stripe is more hydrating, and I like that one in the winter. Just so you know. Your top brands in makeup for each category. I'm interested to know who you think has the best eyeshadow formula. I did an entire video about my favorite eyeshadow formulas in Eyeshadow Palette Month, so I'll link that in the description box down below. And later this month, in September, I am doing my top 3 in every category videos. So I'm going to do 2 of them, one with like face, cheek, complexion things, and one for eye and lips. So stay tuned. Makeup color is, what makeup color is the most intimidating for you to use? Orange. It's too big of a clash. Whether like orange in clothing, not a good look. Some of it I can get away with, like if it has a reddish undertone, that I can get away with. But like a pure orange, there's just something about that yellow that it has that just doesn't go with my complexion. So orange eyeshadow, orange lipstick, orange blush, anything that skews too orange leaning is just not a good look on me. If you could only use one brand of makeup for the rest of your life, so that's similar to the first question here, I would choose MAC, because they have the most consistent products in every single range that I think I could get away with. The only problem I'd have with them is mascara. They still don't really do really good mascara, but yeah. I think I would do MAC, because they just do really solid things. If you could keep only keep makeup products from just one brand, which would that be? See, there I struggle, because I have so many different products, and there isn't a single brand on the planet where I've liked everything that I've tried. And I currently, for instance, don't have a MAC bronzer, or I think I have MAC blushes, but I don't have a MAC highlighter. So I think I would have to like really dig into like different brands for like different categories, like I did for the first question. So what do I think of the brand Tear? Not all that much, because I've only tried their cushion foundation, which was too dark for me. So I don't really have an opinion on them because I haven't tried too much. If I lost all my eyeshadow palettes, what palettes would I repurchase first? Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude, Gloss Gods, First Gal on Jupiter, all of the melt palettes I love are no longer available, so I could not repurchase it. Pat McGrath, Subliminal 1, Mothership 1 Subliminal, that's what it's called. What else would I repurchase straight away? I think those 3. I think those 3 would be my priorities to get ASAP. What are my top 10 or 15 favorite palettes in my collection? I did a video actually all about that last spring, I think. So I've given you a top 3, so I think we should be good there. The brand I own the most products from, Essence and Catrice, because I test them out all the time. So whenever I declutter, I always feel there's an overkill of Essence and Catrice products I get rid of, because not everything fits my complexion or my makeup preferences. So I always own the most by those 2 brands, but also declutter the most by them. If you could create a makeup collection or product inspired by a book or a movie, which one would it be and why? Very difficult. Is there a book series I feel very inspired by for makeup looks? Not really. Not really. No. Maybe, like, last year I read the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, which has, like, jade and it's all, like, green in my brain. So that could be something that I could use there, but there isn't really anything, and I feel like a lot of the IPs that I think are really good for creating makeup with have already been done, so I don't really think there's anything I could add to that. I mean, I'm currently reading this book, which is the latest book in the Ben Aronovich Peter Grant Rivers of London series, Stone and Sky. And this is one of my all-time favorite book series, so I would have to pick this just because it's a favorite, but I don't really feel inspired to create a makeup collection with it. So that's the thing. Like, I don't really feel there's any connection to makeup in those books, so I also feel like this also goes into like the personal category. A lot of my interests are very sort of like pockets in my life, like nothing really overlaps. So I like books, that's one interest, and I have makeup, that's an interest. I added coloring to the list this year, so that's a little pocket. I like music, that's another pocket. I like fashion, that's another pocket. But nothing truly overlaps. I like language, like that's been an interest of mine as well. Mythology is another interest of mine that goes way back. So some of those kind of overlap, but they don't really, especially not in my brain. So that's why it's difficult for me to answer that question. A product in my makeup collection that is the most special for me, and why? I think my Urban Decay Vice 3 palette, just because I dragged it halfway across the world. So that's the one I put the most effort into getting. So the Urban Decay Vice palettes were a limited edition all the time. I forgot to buy the Vice 3. Well, I didn't forget it. I was like a bit ambivalent about it when it was launched, and then I saw a lot of people making content with it, and then I wanted to get it, and it had sold out in my region. The only place I could still find it was on the Urban Decay US website. And I don't know what happened there, but I could use my Dutch credentials to have it shipped to a friend of mine in the US. And I was going to the US that summer, so I sent the package to her house. We met up in New York City, and she gave me the palette. And that was at the start of my trip, and I think, was that the trip where I went to Miami and Seattle? I think it was. So I went to Miami, Seattle, Vancouver, and Chicago before I went home. Yeah, so the Urban Decay Vice 3, that's special in that regard. What would be my top tips for a makeup beginner? Don't let yourself get overwhelmed. You don't need as much makeup as I do. Find things that work for you. Trial and error is the only way to know what works. So you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna buy products that make you feel like, but this doesn't work for me and it works for everyone else. It's the nature of the game. And sure, you can do a lot of research into like your skin type and your color season and all that, but that's still not going to show you what is actually going to work for you. I've tried so many things that, for instance, look cool toned in all the pictures, even when I swatch it, and then I put it on my eyes and it still looks warm. It happens. I've tried foundations that say they are great for fair skin. I wear them for a day and they look orange after an hour of wear. You won't know whether something works for you personally until you try it. So take it easy. Focus on the basics first. You don't need that €65 plush eyeshadow palette in your life just yet. Focus on the basics. Focus on technique before you get to the fun stuff. Really, really. Because knowing how and where to put things on your personal face is much more valuable to you than the products. You don't need products. Products can do anything. It's what you do with them that's going to make the difference. What beauty trend do I wish would disappear? I don't really follow trends myself all that much. I just kind of do what works for me. So I'm not that attuned to beauty trends per se, but a trend within the beauty community that I feel would go away is complaining. Just the sheer number of people who don't really try things and who are only pushing products down your throat. That's what I wish would go away. It's why I don't follow so many beauty creators all that much anymore, because the minute I feel I'm being marketed to too much, that's when I stop watching, you could say. I feel bad about that. A product that completely changed my routine and that I could never live without, setting spray. I never used to use setting spray until I moved to this place where I live now. Moved here almost 8 years ago now. I started riding my bike more, and I found that adding like a good primer and a setting spray really made my makeup last. So that was something that really changed in my routine. There's already a lot of influencer or celebrity brands. If I had to pick one person, who do I think would create a cool brand? I'm like the worst person to ask this question, because I'm not attuned to celebrity culture or influencer culture, and I don't really follow them, you could say. And I also don't necessarily support brands because they are by a celebrity I support or an influencer I support. I love Angelica Nukvis. I mentioned her as one of the YouTubers as I watch. I've tried stuff from her brand Singe Beauty, but I didn't buy it because it was her brand. So I don't know how I feel about that. I'm sort of ambivalent about influencers and celebrity brands. I think that the average makeup consumer doesn't even know that Rare Beauty is owned partly by Selena Gomez. So, especially because her name isn't really on the brand. So I definitely think that it's a thing that a lot of people are now starting to do because it's a way to branch out. I really think the reason why we haven't heard anything new music-wise from Rihanna is just because her beauty brand is doing so well. She doesn't have to produce new music in order to maintain her lifestyle, I think, because that is just going really well for her. So I don't really feel like there's anyone in particular who I'm like, oh, that's someone who I haven't seen do a collab yet, or who I think should. No, there's just nothing there. What eyeshadow colors or eyeshadow brands have surprised you and that you thought you would not like it but ended up liking it? First thing that comes to mind is Glamlight. I tried some things by them in the past, wasn't a fan, even though everybody loved them. And then I found out some color stories by them that fit my vibe a little bit more. And then I was like, oh wait, I actually do really enjoy this brand. It wasn't the right color story for me. So that's definitely there. When it comes to colors, I've tried everything under the sun, so nothing really surprises me there anymore. I've tried everything. Full-on rainbows to deep dark, whatever. There's nothing really there in terms of colors that I haven't tried. Can I do a video on how I determined I was a cool to neutral undertone? Comes back to the question of a makeup, like if you're new to makeup, how do you know? You don't know unless you try it. So it's been a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes, a lot of foundation shades that weren't right for me. I lived through the warm-toned craze of 2016 when an orange was considered a neutral by some people on this channel, on this platform. So I found out I was cool to neutral because makeup trends took me into places that made me look in the mirror and go like, something's off. So it was just because I tried certain things and I found products that made me feel like, oh, but this is actually a match, or wow, my eyes are really popping. And that's how I found out that the cool to neutral stuff is just what works for me best. Are there any brands of eyeshadow that you used to really like but that are now not just that impressed with? And why has your opinion changed? Urban Decay. If you've seen my eyeshadow palette collection video, you will have seen the massive Urban Decay collection I still have in my house that I do no longer actively use. They haven't really been releasing anything that sparks my interest. And the brand has become unavailable where I live. So availability is definitely a part of it there. Like if it's easy for me to go into a store, swatch something, and see something with my own eyes, I'm much more inclined to like a certain product or a brand. Urban Decay has been taken off the European market completely. It's no longer available in the EU, save for a couple of online places. The closest I can find it in store is in the UK, and what I have seen of them in the UK is like these little slim consoles. They no longer even have like a full stand in most stores, so that's a bit of a shame. If palettes could be made at a more affordable price point, would you foresee having special multi-chromes, then be able to purchase the multi-chromes separately as a single in shades of your preference? No. I think brands should, like, I definitely think that there's a lot of overpriced makeup. Makeup ingredients are very cheap. I think that a lot of makeup is overpriced because a lot of the price of a makeup product goes into marketing, packaging, and sort of like, whether they use celebrities or whatever. Very often we don't just pay for the product. We just don't. Also with indie brands, it doesn't matter what brand it is, you're paying for overhead more so than you're paying for the actual product. Also if it has special shimmers. Let's be real here. But I'm just not a fan of all shimmer palettes. I'm not a fan of, for instance, what Blend Bunny has done with the new Alice Atlantis release, where they have the big palette and then they have the palette split into two sides, and then there's an all shimmer palette that you can purchase to go with it. That's a way to actually get you to spend more by brands. So that's why my initial reaction to this question is no. I don't want brands to put multi-chromes into separate palettes or to sell them to me as singles. I want them to do a good blend of things in everything I buy. And I would rather spend a little bit more for one single palette and to have a variety of things in, because then I actually have a use for the whole thing. I don't want to have to go out and buy another thing. And I definitely think that there's brands who do this at a very reasonable price point. Fantasy Cosmetica, Bella Beauty Bar, Gloss Gods. They show that you can do 12, 15 pan or even more palettes for, or Cosmic Beauty is another one, with a 40 to 60 euro price point. The kind of prices that other brands are charging us are all inflated. I don't care how special the palette is. I don't care how many special shimmers I get. I want a good blend so I have a workable palette that can give me versatile looks. So that's what I'm always looking for with any palette I buy. But no, I don't want to be able to buy them separately. I never go for that. It's a way to get you to spend more money rather than less. And I have an entire palette with multi-chromes from Cleona. So I have that concept already. So that's why I don't need it from any other brands. But that's from back in the day when we first got multi-chromes and they weren't stuck into palettes yet because they were too expensive to be sticking in palettes, and then the price would inflate. So you also see that the more something becomes a standard in the industry, the more brands start to do it, the more the demand goes up, the more brands do it, the cheaper the prices of those shimmers become. Because it's just a matter of offer and demand. And when it was new and sparkly and they were really expensive and whatnot, because it was expensive to make because nobody was asking for them. But now manufacturers just know that if you make makeup, very often people will ask for these multi-chromes. It's why Kiko has multi-chromes. It's why Catrice does a multi-chrome holographic face highlight for less than €5. They're able to do it because the materials have become cheaper because of demand. So I do think that the minute we keep things reasonable, it's fine. We can keep the middle ground. How do you pick what palette to use? I have a large collection. It's getting harder to decide. I'm not going to declutter. I had to declutter at some point. If I had kept every single eyeshadow palette I've ever owned, I would need a second house. I would need like a storage unit just for the eyeshadow palette, so that wasn't going to fly. Before this place, I lived in a very small studio apartment, so I've had to declutter since the dawn of time, so it's something I'm used to. I just don't have the space. How do I decide? because I film videos with them, and very often I will select palettes for a video, and I go like, oh, I haven't used you for a while, and then that's what I roll into my Shop My Stash next month. That's really how I do it. What's my foundation shade in companies that have a lot of shades, like NARS, MAC, or Double Wear? I've never been able to find a good shade match in NARS. Double Wear, the lightest shades they don't sell here, so I wouldn't know, and Double Wear is too full coverage and matte heavy for my liking, so I've never tried it. And MAC, I've also never been able to find my exact match in. The only exact match that I truly, truly love is House Labs, the Triclone foundation, in which I'm 060 Fair Warm. That's my best shade match in my entire makeup collection, and I've tried hundreds of foundation over time. But NARS is too yellow, MAC is too yellow, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what shade I am in those. The MAC Water Weight foundation, I was an NC15. That was an okay shade match, but it still wasn't perfect. It was still too yellow for me. What is my recommendation for a palette to use for green eyes when you have a cool undertone? Anything with a purple in. Green and purple are opposites on the color wheel. If you have cool undertone, find yourself some really good cool tone purples, perhaps with some grays in the mix, and you're going to look lovely. What do you usually use for your everyday makeup, and how long does it take? I already answered this. It's about 15 to 20 minutes, and I do Shop My Stash videos every single month, so that's the products I rotate through, and that's my entire makeup look. If I were to start my own makeup line, what name would I give it? I would probably call it Floating in Dreams, because that's my identity online. My favorite eyeshadow application style. Oh, we're almost there. My favorite style of application is what I'm wearing today. So a matte in the crease, a shimmer all over the lid. The darkest shade in the palettes I always use as a bit of a liner with a little angle brush. And then I'm sort of repeating the mattes on the lower lash line, and I pop a shimmer in the inner corner. I use about 4 to 5 shadows with every single eye look I do. I don't do anything too complicated. Yes, I can do halo eyes. I can do half cut creases. I can do full cut creases. I can do wings. I can do the whole 9 yards. It takes too much time with my eye shape to make that look wearable to work. So that's why I don't. This is sort of like my standard, my go-to, what I feel most comfortable with, and that I can slap on in 5 minutes, in under 5 minutes. If I were to lose all of my makeup, what would be the first eyeshadow palette you would be purchasing? Why? I already answered this. It's the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. My all-time go-to makeup products that I've been using for years are things that are sort of like the workhorses. They're not going to be color makeup. So it's going to be something like the Essence Make Me Brow, which I always use as a brow gel. Something like the Essence Lash Princess Mascara, the Maybelline Falsies Flared Mascara. Those are things I've used for years. So those would be some all-time favorite. But the problem is a lot of makeup that I used to love has been discontinued over time. So even if I loved it, it's very often no longer available. The last question I have for you is, how did I figure out what color stories and undertones work best for me? I've already answered this as well. Trial and error. I've lived through so many different makeup eras in the past couple of 15 years that I've been doing this, that I've been doing makeup, and you know after a while what works for you and what doesn't. It's not that I don't like trying new things. It's not that I don't want to, but I've tried a lot. I've tested out a lot of things. It's all documented either here on the channel or over on the blog. So also all of the faux pas, the mistakes, everything is there. But yeah, and yes, for those people who think that I'm a muted autumn, I'm definitely not, because one of my worst colors is a dusty rose. And that's actually one of the colors in that color palette. I become a ghost the minute I wear those very muted colors, actually. So I used to. That's how I know. I used to wear shades like that a lot, especially in like my clothing, and also rose gold used to be a shade I really, really loved a couple of years ago. But then afterwards I was like, that actually wasn't that good of a look. So I just know what looks right because I've tried so many things. And that's it. Those were all of the questions I had from you. So I now need to go and have lunch because it's already 2 o'clock. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. Thank you so very much for sending me your question. If you did, There were a couple of questions that were very similar, so if there were any double ones, I didn't always like put them in. Sometimes I kept them in, so I do apologize if you didn't hear your question. But I really hope this way you got to know me a little bit better and that we are still having fun on here. Because like I said, I'm here for the vibes. So if you're here for the vibes as well, then stay tuned for more. I make 4 videos a week on this channel. So I hope to see you very, very soon in a new video. Bye-bye.